व्हाट्सअप गाइज, वेलकम बैक टू जेसीज रिएक्शन चैनल। कैसे हो आप लोग? मज़े में? सही है बॉस। आज हम रिव्यू करेंगे निंटेंडो स्विच 2। लॉन्च हुआ है या नहीं मुझे नहीं पता, मगर कुछ पब्लिक के हाथ में वो आ चुका है। तो हम वीडियो रिव्यू करेंगे एक यूट्यूबर का जो मार्कस ब्राउनी है, उसका निंटेंडो स्विच को रिव्यू किया है, उसके हाथ में है, वो यूज़ कर रहा है। तो चलो देखते हैं कैसा है।
Here, welcome to your first look and hands-on
Cool
with
है।
the Nintendo Switch 2. And this is everything
थोड़ा बड़ा लग रहा
you
है।
need to know. It's obviously one of the hottest and most anticipated new consoles in a long time. So when Nintendo invited me to this little hands-on in New York City with a few other YouTubers,
nice।
obviously, I said yes. So the first Switch, I don't know if you
स्टीम
remember,
देख
came out
कैसा
in
दिख रहा है? थोड़ा बड़ा दिख रहा है।
2017. So naturally, almost a decade later, there's a bunch of stuff that people, including myself, a mere casual, have been waiting for this to be updated. And
मैं भी 2019 से वेट कर रहा था कि कब नया आएगा, कब नया आएगा, क्योंकि मैं 2019 में 19 में थाईलैंड में था और मैं ख़रीदने वाला था, मगर चांस नहीं मिला। मैं ऐसा पैसा देने वाला था और लेने वाला था, फिर मैं वाला जानते अगर वो ले लिया तो थाईलैंड नहीं घूम पाऊँगा, तो मैंने वो छोड़ दिया निंटेंडो स्विच। चल कोई बात नहीं, ले लेंगे।
spoiler alert, they basically, I think, hit every single one of those things, but there is one big asterisk kind of overhanging all of it. So general form factor wise, this shape, very familiar. It looks like a Switch. Like you've probably already seen the images online, but it is noticeably bigger. So it's the same thickness as the first generation, but it feels thinner because everything's kind of spread out more. It's bigger.
ये कितना इजीली निकल गया वो रिमोट कंसोल, क्या बोलेगी उसे?
body's bigger, the Joy-Cons are bigger, and it's mostly driven by this big new screen. So it's now a 7.9-inch display up front.
7.9 inch, sexy.
6.2. And this is still an LCD, but it's now a 1080p variable
अरे QLED क्यों नहीं दिया? LCD ही है अभी भी।
refresh rate LCD that gets up to 120 hertz. And it just looks so much better than the original Switch. It looks plenty bright to me, too. It supports HDR as well. Notably, it's not an OLED, though, so it doesn't have the perfectly inky blacks or the battery life advantages that come with an OLED. I do kind of think that we're eventually also going to see a Switch 2 OLED. I think that makes sense. It'll probably be in a few years.
Obviously.
There's probably also going to be a Switch 2 Lite in a few years as well.
क्योंकि जो पहला स्विच था उसके बाद उसमें भी OLED बाद में आया था, पहले नहीं आया था।
Doesn't mean you have to wait for those. It's just something to keep in mind in the back of your head. But yeah, I'm definitely loving the variable refresh rate up to 120 hertz. Every game they're showing here takes advantage of it. You know how iPhone defenders always love to say, oh, you know, people can't tell the difference between 60 and 120 hertz. It's no big deal. But, you know, high refresh rate and gaming go hand in hand. So I think a lot of people will appreciate the smoother games, obviously, and potentially also the smoother UI that comes with it. So the screen is the biggest improvement. Now there are some other, you know, nice quality of life improvements here, like the full width kickstand that lets you prop it up at a pretty wide variety of angles, including almost all the way down, similar to the Switch OLED. But they added another port up to the top as well, and that makes it easier to charge while the console's kind of sitting on a table or something, since that was a pain before. And it's also perfect for the additional USB Type-C accessories, which I'll get to in a second. But I think the other obvious biggest upgrade is the new Joy-Cons. So many things are better about these new Joy-Cons. First of all, they are bigger, like everything else, which ergonomically is very welcome. The left and right sticks are larger too. Now, the neat thing is, most of the Joy-Con is still made of plastic to be lightweight, but at the top here, these SR and SL buttons, first of all, they are way bigger than last gen, but they're also actually made of the metal that the magnets in the console are attracted to. They're steel buttons. So that's why the connection between the Joy-Cons and the Switch are so strong. It's that metal right there. Lastly, each Joy-Con can also be used as a mouse in supporting games. I did not see this one coming. It's kind of interesting idea, but basically there's a small optical sensor on the side of the Joy-Con. So if you turn that Joy-Con horizontally and place that sensor down on a table, you can move it around like a mouse, even rotate it, and that acts as yet another input method that apparently certain games will work pretty well with. I was doing this demo of a wheelchair basketball game, and so it ended up being pretty intuitive. You kind of hold the triggers and push forward, and you would move forward in the game. Never would have thought it would work so well, but there's a good amount of sensitivity. Apparently, you can do this while swiping forward on your jeans and your lap too, if you wanted to. Other surfaces should work as well. In the Nintendo Direct live stream, they also showed this other golf game where you move the putter around and rotate it and then make a stroke using the mouse motion,
सही है
all on
बे.
a table like a mouse. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. We'll see what other games end up using this control. Now, we didn't get a whole lot of other specifics like the chip it's running or even how much RAM it has,
हाँ वो important
which
है यार.
admittedly
Processor
a lot
कितना
of
heavy
Switch
है
buyers
उसका वही
just
बताया.
don't care about. But one big spec that they did improve is they've gone from 32 gigs of storage on the original Switch to 256 gigs of storage. And the storage is faster. So I definitely appreciate this. You can see my Switch home screen behind me. I could only fit 3 games on my Switch because one of them was Rocket League and it was like 17 gigs. But I also think this will directly relate to how much larger Switch 2 games will probably be. So 256 gigs will feel in line with the larger file sizes, you know, bigger textures, higher resolution and all that. Switch 2 games will probably also be bigger too. So thank
मेरा ये सोच है कि स्विच को है ना स्टीम से कोलैबोरेट करना चाहिए और स्टीम के जो गेम्स है वो स्विच में चलना चाहिए. ये हो गया ना तो काफ़ी मज़ा आएगा. मतलब जो बैरियर्स है ना वो पूरे कंप्लीट हो जाएंगे जो पब्लिक जो मिस करती है स्विच में.
Hopefully there is still micro SD card support. It lives right here under the hinge again, and you'll specifically have to get a micro SD express card to play games off it
Micro
on the
SD डाल
Switch 2.
सकते हैं.
But I think generally they'll be pretty easy to find. I already saw Lexar is going to be making a 1 terabyte micro SD card just for the Switch 2, so that's awesome. Now the Switch isn't a Switch without the dock, and the new dock supports 4K resolution out to a TV. Love to see that. There's actually also a fan in the Switch 2 dock that turns on while it's docked. So while it's cranking out that extra resolution, it doesn't get too hot. But from there, I feel like all of the new software features. So when you hit that new C button on the Joy-Con, it brings up this new menu called Game Chat. So they didn't let us do this in the demos that I tried today, but in Nintendo Direct, you can see the idea is if you have some friends on other Switches gaming at the same time as you, you can all turn your mics on and talk to each other, or even turn screen
मल्टीप्लेयर गेम्स और पहले जब हम खेलते थे ना मज़ा आता था. अब वो ज़माना गया है यार. पता नहीं कब आएगा. आएगा ज़रूर मगर आएगा. मगर ऐसा हाथ में ये होता है कि कब मल्टीप्लेयर गेम्स खेले, कब दोस्तों के साथ खेले, कब एंजॉय करें.
sharing on to see each other's gameplay live, which is cool. I know a lot of people do FaceTime while gaming and kind of want to combine the whole experience. So I personally probably wouldn't do this, but I totally get it. And it's funny. It was actually refreshing seeing this in Nintendo's official footage. You can see the gameplay from other people as you're watching it it's kind of laggy and it's kind of low resolution, but it's totally fine. Like, this makes me believe more that what we're seeing here is exactly how it'll look. Like, Nintendo didn't want to make any fake promises like, oh, it'll be 1080p when you watch other people game. But hey, at least you'll have an idea of what's going on their screen, so that's
obviously
cool. But not only that, if you get this optional accessory here, which is called the Switch 2 camera, this little thing plugs into that top port on the Switch when you're docked, or I think you can even plug it straight into the dock itself. And when you point it at yourself, it can automatically cut you out from the background and put your face next to your gameplay. So it literally feels like a gaming version of a Zoom call or something. Like, everyone can see their friends' faces and their friends' reactions to the games in real time. And some games will even integrate that feed a little more.
Xbox, PS5 में सब ज़्यादा करके स्ट्रीम लाइव स्ट्रीम करते, तो स्विच वालों ने भी थोड़ा दिमाग लगाया, ज़्यादा लगाना चाहिए था.
Like putting your face over where an avatar would normally be. It's like video chatting while playing a game. It's not going to be the highest fidelity thing ever, but it'll be a sort of extra layer on top and makes it feel more social. So game chat is cool when you're in multiple different places, but there's also going to be situations where multiple people are all gaming in the same physical place with Switches. And so they built a feature just for that, which is being able to share a game with other people who don't have it yet, up to 3 other people. So one Switch 2 is the host, and then
अगर तेरे पास गेम नहीं है, चल मैं देता हूँ तुझे, अपन तीनों चारों जितने भी लोग हैं सब साथ में खेलेंगे. बेस्ट है, एक इंसान गेम खरीदो और आजू बाजू वालों के शेयर करो. जो दूर है उसके साथ नहीं होएगा, मगर जो आजू बाजू है उसके साथ शेयर होएगा. बेस्ट है ना.
And up to 3 other Switches They don't have to have the game installed at all. It's just one guy goes, all right, guys, I'll have this game. We're all going to play it in the same room. And every one of you now temporarily has this game. And you can play your own perspective
Obviously.
of the multiplayer, whatever, without having to buy or install the whole thing at that moment. I'm not sure exactly how long it'll take to set up or like exactly which games will support it, but a Switch 2 can host and then up to 3 other Switches can join. It's called Game Share. I like it a lot. I think that pretty conveniently brings us to the big asterisk hovering over all of this, which is pricing. See, the Switch 2 is going to start off at $449.
अरे यार महंगा है. देखते हैं आगे के प्राइस देखते हैं.
In the US. Now, I've seen mixed reactions to that price. Obviously, the Switch 1 was amazing. It was $300, but that was almost 10 years ago. So now, you know, new specs and updates and inflation and tariffs and all of that, to me, actually makes $449 feel like a pretty reasonable price. It's reported that Switch 2 games are going to be around...
Switch के games इतने महंगे देते हैं वो लोग. पता नहीं उनको क्या हो जाता है. सबसे महंगे Switch के games रहते हैं.
$80 just for a digital download Switch 2 game. $90 if you want the physical version. That definitely feels really high. There are so many great PC and console games and even Switch 1 games in the store in like the...
मेरा यही रीज़न की वजह से मैंने Switch Nintendo Switch जो फर्स्ट वाला कंसोल था मैंने नहीं ख़रीदा क्योंकि गेम्स ही उसके इतने महंगे हैं. ऐसा लगता है कि सेकंड हैंड स्विच नया मिल जाएगा. वही रीज़न की वजह से मैंने ख़रीदा नहीं था.
Nintendo Switch 2 demo game though is paid. It's not included for free. It's going to be like 10 or...
जब तुम टूर दे रहे हो तुम्हारे कंसोल का गेम के अंदर तो फ्री दो ना एडो. तुमको उतना अक्ल नहीं है क्या? उसको भी पेड कर जाओ. घंटा को यूज़ करेगा गेम्स थोड़ी है वो.
$20 or something like that in the store. But even just having it paid at all to me seems like a huge miss. That's going to be so many people that are not going to experience it, that are not going to be able to fully walk through it and understand and get to know. There's...
अबे बच्चा है ये, सिंपल सा तो चीज़ है, हाथ में दे दिया, उसको क्या अंडरस्टैंडिंग करना पड़ेगा.
Switch 2 because no one's going to go buy
Obviously.
that demo game. I don't know what they were thinking there. Other than that, though, the Switch 2 seems pretty sweet. Not gonna lie, I really like it. There's a reason the original Switch was one of the best-selling consoles of all time. It was well-priced, great form factor, very versatile. For me, the perfect airplane game console. I would say the signs are pointing to Switch 2 also being really good again. But there are also definitely some things we still don't know. Like, for example, we obviously don't know the chip and the RAM. We do know it's confirmed that there is some amount of DLSS happening. I would assume that to do 4K on a TV, there's some amount of upscaling happening. We just don't know exactly how much yet. But then also battery life. How similar or different will battery life potentially be from the first Switch? You know, having a bigger, higher refresh rate, higher resolution screen tends to eat battery life, but it's also bigger, so the battery capacity can be bigger, so maybe it just balances out and it's similar. TBD. I don't think fast charging is announced or anything crazy like that. But then also things like durability and whether they fix Joy-Con drift or not. These are all things that are TBD and that I think would be great to find out.
Marcus bro review कर रहा है क्या मजाक कर रहा है? पूरा इन्फॉर्मेशन लेकर आने का, आधा इन्फॉर्मेशन कैसे दे रहा है तू? तुझे कुछ पता ही नहीं है. कमेंट्स करो नीचे तुमको और क्या देखना है. मैं उस सब के वीडियो के रिव्यूज बनाऊंगा. सबको एक एक करके निपटा दूंगा. काट. अपने पास बहुत टाइम है. क्या अगर आप चाहते हो मैं निंटेंडो स्विच खरीदूँ और उसका रिव्यू करूँ तो ये वीडियो कम से कम 10 मिलियन व्यूज़ पहुँचना चाहिए, 1 लाख लाइक होना चाहिए और 50,000 सब्सक्राइबर होना चाहिए, कमेंट होना चाहिए. तो मैं आपको लिए निंटेंडो स्विच खरीद के उसका रिव्यू करूँगा और उस पर गेम्स खेलूँगा. चलेगा आपको? इतना कर दोगे तो मैं ज़रूर करूँगा आप लोगों के लिए. पैसे तो है नहीं मगर कुछ ना कुछ जुगाड़ ज़रूर करूँगा. तो ये वीडियो इतना शेयर करो और मुझे फेमस कर दो. फिर मैं ख़रीदूँगा, जो आप बोलोगे वो ख़रीदूँगा. ठीक है. चलो गाइस, कैसा लगा ये मेरा रिएक्शन? आपको निंटेंडो स्विच खरीदना या नहीं खरीदना कमेंट करके नीचे ज़रूर बताना. तो चलो, जब तक मिलते हैं अगले वीडियो में. बाय बाय.